All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning into the Rich CELENZA Show. So what I'm going to call today's podcast is If You Need to Party, Then Party. So me growing up in the nightclub business, or with my father for basically 40 years, I realized when it comes to partying that a lot of people want to party and they either resent after, they've partied, or they stop themselves from actually going out and partying because I think they feel like people are judging them. It could be because of their religion. It could be because of many different things. But I'm telling you right now, if you want to go out and have a good time in your life, you better start doing it and getting that out of your system. And here's one thing too. I'm going to flip this around too. You got to realize when it comes to partying, and when I say partying, I mean just going out and having a good time. That doesn't necessarily mean you got to get bombed, do drugs, get nuts, go to gentlemen's clubs or any of that shit. You want to you can have a blast just doing whatever you want to do. And when I say partying, I mean with a group of people, going out maybe, or even just socializing. And the thing is, most likely, that's always going to be there. Partying is never going to go away. You can't escape partying. I'm going to tell you right now. Now, if you're extremely introverted and you never leave your house, that's a different story. But for the average person out there, I think there's a lot of confusion between partying and not partying. I think even from a social media standpoint, it seems like it looks like friends out there having a blast, drinking. And if you have somebody that's always posting that they're drinking wine or they're at nightclubs or they're at bars, whatever the case may be, you're like, wow, is this person an alcoholic? Is he a drunk? Is he a party animal? It's usually not what it looks like. Some it is. I mean, we all have friends, I think, to a certain point that may have been or may be an alcoholic or a functioning alcoholic or just like to drink and party, smoke weed. Some of them like to do drugs. It's a reality. That doesn't mean that everybody's addicted to drugs, that everybody's an alcoholic, that everybody does this constantly. And this goes for all different ages, so I don't want to hear the bullshit anymore. But if you neglect yourself, I think, from anything, especially younger people, I think you come to pay a price later in life. I've seen this especially with a lot of women that suppress what they want to do because they're afraid of being judged. They either get married too early or they get pregnant very young, become mothers, or they may have partied in college and then after college just kind of went a little bit cold turkey and then all of a sudden thought they had to act like an adult and they couldn't do certain things that they used to love doing. And then eventually through their 30s, they get married or whatever, and then they get divorced, and you see them flipping out like a lot of women having midlife crises. And the same with men a lot of times. A lot of guys that I used to see that were in very strict households or, their parents kind of always being very religious driven, I guess you could say, and judging their kids. It comes to a point, there's a breaking point, I think, sometimes where, and I kind of went through this, so that's how I know this, is it like you get turned off and you almost want to go full extreme the other way. And me being raised between a very religious mother, Catholic, and then a father owning a nightclub or being in that, you kind of decide sometimes, and obviously a nightclub and being around beautiful women in that lifestyle is going to be usually a lot funner than maybe religion, because I think what happens with religion is they're always preaching at you and they're always telling you what's right and wrong with you. They're always making you feel guilty of a lot of things I don't think we need to be guilty about. They're always trying to suppress how you want to do certain things, and that could be having sex before marriage, that could be having drinks, or going out and doing certain things and just having fun, listening to certain types of music. They're constantly bogging you down. And that's what I felt like. And that's no one's fault. I think a lot of times, too, though, if it fits your personality, religion's amazing for obviously billions of people. So they do follow their own rules and it works and they all live wonderful lives. But in my case, after a while, I got exhausted from it. Doesn't mean I became an atheist or I'm anti-God. None of that. That's ridiculous. But it also made me, in my case, I didn't fear, I think with religion, I'm not going to get into a whole religion thing here, but I'm just talking about partying, but I think the fear like, was I more fearful, or did I want to have a good time? And, having a good time, was that going to send me to hell in my mind? Or if I did not what they wanted me to do, am I going to burn in hell? This is in my youth. Eventually I weighed it out and said, and I would hate to say this sometimes, a lot of people that I was around in religion, especially people that ran churches or different people that are involved, I said, in my mind, if they're going to heaven, would I want to be there with them? And most of the time my answer was no. Now, on the flip side of things, people that partied or I had a good time with or whatever, they may have been some shady characters. There was also a lot of great people that had great personality, just like to have a great time. And I said, wherever they're going, would I rather be with them? And my answer was yes. So that was how I kind of looked at it. And sometimes, as I got older, I realized I had a balance to say, I love both sides. And back to partying, I see a lot of older people that go through this, and you're always hearing, man, especially a lot of the older women, man, I wish, I got wrapped up with this guy, I was married this, and then this happened, and this, I wish I would have went out and danced more, I wish I would have, had some drinks and traveled more, I wish I would have, and of course it's easy in hindsight to say all these things, because if they did that, you never know what's going to happen. It could end up like, in Forrest Gump with Jenny. You end up in the wrong crowd, and before you know it, things start happening, and who knows what's really happening. You could be drugged, you could be raped, and all these different things, but that can happen anywhere. So don't kid yourself. A lot of people want to always say, in this life of partying, all this shit's going to happen to you. Well, the truth is, a lot of things in a lot of environments you think are the holiest, or that nothing's going to happen to you, that's where it happens as well. It's basically it's a chance. Life's a chance no matter what environment you're in. That goes for any of us. If we walk down the street, we could get mugged tonight. We could get murdered tonight. It's a chance. You don't know. That can happen in a mall. That can happen at a shooting range. I'm just saying it can happen going to church, as we all know. And that can, you could be going to a nightclub. So to kind of put a stigma that everybody who parties or does certain things are bad. And, I've been fortunate enough from a very young age to travel all over North America up until my 50s. Now, I'm exhausted from loud music. I call it audio assault. And that was just because from like 2 years old to 14, my father owned a bar and a nightclub and basically a disco or whatever restaurant. And he'd have bands that rehearsed all day. I would be exhausted from hearing that. And then he would have blasting music. And it was funny because I realized, though I didn't realize this, I'm sorry. Let me grab some water here. This is crazy what I didn't realize until later. I remember I was going to run my father's nightclub, and then he sold it. And then we were going to open this huge club in South Florida. I was being programmed to run a nightclub. And then my father went into the vending business, so I helped him do vending, but it was just in bars. So now I'm going from bar to bar to bar when we're kind of used to owning the club and the restaurant, the disco, and it's just a totally different environment because my father was the boss and I'm his son, and now all of a sudden I'm in all these different locations with people partying, but there were different owners, and then there were different managers, and then there's different bartenders, and we didn't really have a say. We would just bring equipment. But I realized when I moved to Florida officially when I was 18 by myself, I had a fake ID, and then I just started to go to nightclubs by myself, not with my father. And I'd meet different guys at gyms. I'd either meet them there, or sometimes we'd go together. But for a while, until I hit 21. When I hit 21, I've talked about this before, I felt like a veteran 20 years. Like I was exhausted from the nightclub business. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore. And I was working in that environment, so it was hard to escape. But then at the same time, I was going to a lot of casinos. So it flipped from bars to casinos because we liked gambling. So it was more of a relaxed environment, even though it's not, because there's still smoking, drinking, drugs, and gambling going in and out of Vegas. I even went there for my honeymoon, Atlantic City, and Indian reservations. But it was calmer. You can sit down, music's not blasting, or bands, any of that shit. And that's something I'm thinking about too. If you want to experiment with certain things again, even gambling, smoking weed, whatever the case may be, I tell people, a lot of times that's on you if you want to experiment, but you may have to do that. Now, I'm not telling people to go out and do drugs. If that's what you like, go out and do heroin or go out and do coke or do whatever you got to do. But you're going to do it anyways, regardless of what I say. Because there's good and bad in everything. But people are going to do these things. And if you want to experiment with whatever you're trying to experiment with, as long as you can control it or moderate it, is that the word, moderate? I think, and I'm not just saying this, you're going to be okay. Now, society doesn't want to tell you that a lot of times. A lot of times they're going to tell you if you do anything, you could get addicted, which you can. But I know a lot more people that do a lot of things, that have done a lot of things, that have had fun and has still had a wonderful life that did not become, drug addicts, alcoholics, gambler, addiction. Now, it does happen to a lot of people. Kind of reminds me a lot of, if we got 7 billion people on the planet, you're kind of focusing in, I don't know how many is there in the United States or North America? I don't know, 350 million, I don't know. But they're going to always focus in a lot on the bad, not on the good. And the truth is, a lot of people do a lot of different things. They're not always going to be good. They're not always going to be that bad. I think sometimes society has tried to program you to say, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And I think what happens with people is they claim it's so bad, that's what makes you want to experiment with it, to see if it's really as bad as they're saying. But I've known tons of people, and I think maybe you do too, that have experimented with drugs, or, they go out and drink, they have a good time, they may smoke weed off and on. I see more addictions with, if you look at society, like a phone addiction, television, laziness, obesity, all these other things that seem to be just as bad, if not worse, which they kind of talk about, but they really don't. Want to acknowledge how bad there are a lot of other things besides partying or doing things that are party related. Now, I'm not, again, telling you to go out and party, get blitzed, get drunk, get DUIs, or any of that shit. But if you moderate or you control what you're doing, right? If you're smoking weed or getting drunk during work, you're kind of an asshole and you should know better. That's not right. But if you're going to sit in your own home by yourself and watch Netflix one night and spark one up or whatever, or have a martini once in a while with some friends, or smoke a cigar, or, back to cigarettes, you don't have to smoke a pack a day. If you like a cigarette, one here and there. And I know you may be like, well, Rich, you don't have an addictive personality. No, I don't. But even if you do, and I think you can do things in moderation, because you've moderated other things in your life, you just don't realize that. It could be, some people could be like, Rich, I'm addicted to Starbucks, hypothetically, which is kind of funny, and they can't not go to Starbucks, and everyone thinks, well, hey, that's no big deal. It's only $5 a day. Right. And that would be the same to me as if you said, hey, I have to have a beer every night, or a couple beers, or on the weekends. I, again, don't see the problem. So, anyways, that's what I want to do in this podcast. Stop feeling bad for a lot of things you want to do and what society keeps telling you that's bad, in my perception, because I think people just have to go out and learn for themselves. If you don't experiment or learn, on your own, and this is coming from somebody who actually, I love fitness, and I have drinks here and there. I really don't. I do things for the flavor. I don't like to be buzzed or drunk. Same with coffee. I don't drink it for caffeine. I'm a weirdo. My father's the same way. My mother's not a drinker really either. And they both, worked in the bar and nightclub business. And I've been around a lot of drug addicts, alcoholics, very close to me, family members, friends. I've had them overdose. I've had them die in the streets. I've seen it all. And again, what I'm saying is to go out and party, as long as you can, and please learn how to control yourself, because you could still have a great time as long as you control yourself. And I did a podcast, I think, and even a video, but I know I did a podcast on, you better know your end game. And most people don't know that when they want to go out and party. They think they're going to make decisions along the way. And that's where a lot of DUIs come in, because they'll be like, hey, I'm going to go out and have a couple drinks. That's cool, but what happens if you have 4? Right? Then what do? You still going to drive home? You're going to throw the dice? Yeah, I'll probably still give it a chance. And before you know it, they got a DUI and they owe 15 grand. They lose their license 6 months to a year. The end game should be, I'm going to drive, hypothetically, 2 drinks. If I do 3, I'm going to have my friend drive me home, or I'm going to call someone to take me home, or Uber, Lyft. If I'm going to smoke weed, whatever you're going to do, I'm not going to drive. Am I going to be in an environment too where I get so smashed somebody can rob me or mug me? No. You have to make a lot of decisions before you go to party and stick with them. Because what happens is every drink or any drug or whatever you're doing, right, you are not the same person. Your mind is not thinking the way it's thinking like it usually does. And I don't know why people can't figure that out. It's really common sense. Because if you've ever noticed some things you've done, like 1 drink, you feel, you're still yourself. 2, maybe a little baby difference. And then 3, each drink, you are changing as a human being. Your mind is changing into something completely different. You have to acknowledge that. But I think a lot of people bullshit themselves and say, no, I can drink for long periods of time. I can control my liquor, and I'm in total control, when a lot of times you may be, but it only takes 1 or 2 times or just 1 bad mistake, and it's a game changer. So that's another thing. Just pay attention to to that, and make your decisions before you go out, not while you're out, if that makes sense. And I get you're going to be making decisions when you're out, like how many more drinks am I going to have, or all these things. I get it. But what I'm saying, as far as really putting yourself in a bad position, right? It could even be like, I'm only going to go to this bar tonight. I'm not going to go to an after hours, or I'm not going to go, do this or that. I'm not going to take these drugs, or I'm not going to do this or that, because you don't want to hurt yourself or others around you. So anyways, like I said, if you got a party, just make sure it's controlled. It's easy for me to say, but I don't have an addictive personality. So you could be like, Rich, go fuck yourself. I don't like anything you said. I don't like that you're telling people to go do drugs. And I'm not telling anybody to go do drugs in that sense. But if you are going to, right? And I think a lot of people are going to, because I've been around it for my whole life. And you're bullshitting yourself sometimes to think, even if you have kids, that they're never going to try, that they're never going to drink, they're never going to smoke weed. I don't know if they're going to pop pills, X, Molly, Coke. I don't know what they're going to do, and neither do you. And I get the last thing we want, I think, for the most part, is our kids to have addictions to, substances or things in that nature. But I also know that they're going to make mistakes. I don't know where that's going to be. And I know they're going to be around people that do bad things. And hopefully they get away from those people. But they're going to be environments where a lot of partying, drugs, sex, and things in that nature are going to happen. And hopefully they protect themselves. And hopefully you talk to your kids about this. And I did a podcast on that as well. Teach your kids the streets. Really teach them, because you can try as hard as you want to stick them in environments where you think they're protected, but most likely wherever they're at, they're not, because people are coming into their life every day just like they came into your life. You may have friends that were good and bad, and you just got to be a realist sometimes, and that's just the way it goes now, right? All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, you might want to check out some of my YouTube channels. I've been doing more fitness stuff with fitness, but you could go to richcelenza.com. And I just, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I want to make it sure I'm clear here. I'm actually not somebody who condones any type of drugs. I don't even smoke weed, but I'm open-minded enough to say a lot of my friends, family members, and colleagues do, and I'm not here to judge them. And some of the best people I've ever met in my life, and that I love very much, they partied in their past. And they've done a lot of incredible things. They're incredible parents. They could be incredible grandparents I've even known that partied, cousins, whatever the case may be. Just be a little more open-minded. And if you do have family members that like to party, that doesn't mean you have to party with them. But just understand that is something they like to do. And I think it's more people-driven. We have a saying that, people make the party. Sometimes people just want to sit around and have a proper drink, or go out on weekends and just have a good time, right? Okay. Stop being so uppity, everybody, is basically what I'm saying. All right. I'm going to wrap it up there. Take care. And if you're traveling, safe travels.